The content of this program expresses the personal views of the presenters and guests and are not necessarily representative of the whole BIPLUS community.
Double the colors, double the thrill. I'm painting outside the lines at will. Buys the word, let the anthem play. Every heart beats its own way. I'm feeling alive. It's not a phase, it's how I thrive. It's love I see, not him or her, it's you and me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second edition of the B-Side, Perth's BIPLUS Community Radio Show, every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on DRN1 Radio. Joining me in the studio tonight is my beautiful co-host, Bridget. Hi, Bridget.
Hello, beautiful, wow.
Well, you are. Come on, let's face it. And speaking of beautiful, we have a brand new co-host with us tonight. Marie, how are you tonight?
I'm great. I think you're a little bit biased there, though, Ares.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
He's biased, he's by everything.
Yeah. And we'll also be talking a little bit later on to a lovely fella by the name of Chris, and we're going to be talking about coming out later in life, and Chris is going to give us a little bit of a rundown of his experience with that.
Thanks, Ares. Just before we kick off, though, I'd like to acknowledge that we're here today on Wajak Noongar Boodja. We pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this land and to the elders past, present and emerging. And I'd also like to send out respect to any First Nations people who might be listening.
Hear, hear. Now, as I said, we're going to be discussing coming out later in life, but before we get to all that, we got so carried away last week talking about bi-visibility and community and erasure and all of these wonderful topics that we never actually got to talk about how this radio show came to be. So, Marie, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so thanks. So I guess this kind of came about a little bit by accident. Happy accident it is. As part of my leadership role for BIPLUS Community Perth, I found it was really important to make sure that, I was creating all of those really important connections with the LGBTQIA plus community in Perth. One of those connections that I came across was Jason, who is the radio owner. Is that right,
That's
Jason?
correct, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, step in any time you like, mate.
Yes.
Yeah, no, you're doing so well so far.
Owner of DRN1. So basically, I sort of introduced myself on LinkedIn, as you do.
Yes,
you
I
know.
found the message.
Yeah.
Turns out I was the floozy.
Well, he did buy me coffee.
So yeah.
But hitting up my partner, is that what you're saying?
No, she hit me up first. I just said,
Oh,
I'd
that's
like,
okay then.
yeah, no, I won't read that bit out. It's a bit rude, no.
It's 100% true.
Yeah, no, so Marie reached out to me on LinkedIn, and because we're Perth's really only gay, lesbian, LGBTQIA plus radio station, we I thought it was a really great opportunity to maybe get something started. So it was really awesome that Marie reached out to me, and it's been a go ever since, and it's happened pretty quickly too.
Very quickly.
Yeah, credit to you, Marie, and to you, mate. It has come together really, really quickly. And, Bridget and I got roped in.
Yeah, I never thought when I attended Pride just about a year ago that I'd be here on radio repping the BIPLUS community a year later, but very, very happy to be here.
But you're doing it so well, Bridget.
Thank you. And you.
Wouldn't be the same without you.
Well, that's a credit to you, Marie, because, one of your skills is reading people and networking, right? Like it is something that you do very, very well. And you, in a very short space of time, have been able to pull, not only a whole bunch of community-based events together, but you've also, with the help of Jason and Russell, put together this radio show in a very short space of time. And here we all are.
With a lot of help from everyone here, I suppose.
Yes. And figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, it's going to be a learning process for sure. But, I could recognize that, I guess, bi voices aren't always, particularly visible. I mean, we talked about visibility last week and, we don't have a lot of places to actually kind of be heard here in Perth. So it was a really good opportunity to, make sure that those voices were amplified. And, I feel like, the two voices that three now, we have as hosts for this show are really good ones. And then the plan is to have, I guess, guests on from elsewhere in the BIPLUS community as well, depending on what we're talking about, so that they can kind of share their experiences, and that we have a good cross-section of the community speaking, over time as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I was just going to touch on that myself. Like it is our intention to have different guests on every week, so that we do get a really good cross section of the community. Because obviously there's 3 of us and the occasional guest. It's we aren't the bi community in Perth. We are just
A tiny slice.
a very very teeny tiny slice of said community, and we want to hear from everybody. We want this to be your show as much as it is our show. So on that, like if people do have any topics for consideration, anything that they would love us to talk about on the show, please do get in touch with us either at the station or through the BIPLUS Community Perth Facebook page, and give us some ideas of stuff that you might want to talk about or that you'd like us to talk about. Or indeed, if you want to become a guest on the show, hit us up.
And if I could say one thing too, it's like, there's not too many times, especially in this industry, that you meet good people just doing good stuff too. So, and that's what really excited me about what Marie brought to us, and that's why we jumped on it. We pride ourselves on being able to do good things for, with good people.
Really appreciate that, Jason. And I think, it's a testament to you that you can kind of recognize, that, we did, want to be part of that conversation, and allowed us that place to be part of it, which we really, really appreciate. Thank you.
You can do good things, but, being a good person doing it is even harder. So, yeah.
Oh, shucks.
Beautifully said.
Credit to you, Jace, because I may be a little bit biased. I mean, Marie is my partner, and I think the world of her. And to be frank, I think the sun shines out of her bum. She is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's really nice when other people recognise her for the beautiful person that she is and the hard work that she puts into this community. So thank you for recognising that, and for providing the space for us to come and have a chinwag each week about all things bisexuality.
Blushing. I think we need to get off talking about me.
What do you think, Marie?
Well, with that segue, back to our main topic, which is all about coming out.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we did want to talk about, not just coming out, but I think what's sort of in the room, I guess, for us. None of us are in our teens and 20s anymore, and I would imagine that coming out at that age is probably a very different experience in today's world than it is coming out at an older age, for some of us in this room.
Yeah, so there'll definitely be a lot to talk about.
Yes, there will. And, we will be talking, as I said, with the lovely Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
And he's going to be sharing with us his experience of coming out at, I think you said, about 45 years of age. Is that correct? Yeah.
Kind of by accident initially. Sorry, a bit far away from the mic. Oh, it's getting moved for me.
Yeah. Lift it up and put it right in your mouth.
That happens so often.
I hope that stays in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I grew up with a lot of queer people. My cousin was openly gay, and the whole family knew from when he was a toddler. He was very flamboyant growing up.
It is really obvious for some people, isn't
Yeah.
it? And for others, it's not so much. Were you in the obvious or not so much category?
I was in the not so obvious that even I didn't realize. And I just kind of, growing up, I guess I figured everybody had those kind of feelings, like occasional guy crushes and stuff. And I thought that people just didn't mention, or guys didn't mention it because they didn't want people to think they were gay.
Yeah.
Because that was always something that nobody wanted to be because of the amount of abuse that gay people got.
Right. And we touched on that a little bit
Yeah.
in last week's show, which you weren't here for. I sort of, detailed my own experience with that, how it was very unsafe for me being a child of the 80s and 90s to come out as bisexual. And it took me almost dying to do that, like that's how big a deal it was for me. How about for you?
I honestly had no idea that I wasn't straight. I had a friend at school who was in the drastically flamboyant, couldn't hide being gay kind of
Yeah.
headspace. And he was bullied mercilessly. I was in a big school. It was about 250 kids per year, and he was outwardly the only gay kid.
Yeah.
But like statistically, that's not true. It's
Yeah.
one in.
And so did you intentionally hide your bisexuality, or did you just
had
not know
no
it was an
idea.
option at this stage and you just sort of thought that those inklings that you were having were everybody had them, you just thought they were
Yeah,
normal?
I knew I wasn't gay because I like girls.
Yeah.
And I didn't know both was an option, I guess.
Had
Like-
you heard of bisexuality at that time?
So at that time, like I have thought about that, and I don't think I actually knew that was a valid option. I mean, obviously, as you kind of become a teenager, you see porn with girls, but in kind of mainstream porn at that time, there wasn't guys with guys. It was the other kind.
Girls and girls
Girls and
and
girls.
a guy.
Yeah, and a guy.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I didn't really think about what that meant as a teenager. I knew I liked it, but I really didn't see my attraction, because it was quite limited compared to my attraction to women. I just didn't think it was something that wasn't straight. I just assumed it was things you just didn't talk about because you didn't want to be gay and you didn't want people to beat you up. And that's pretty much it. And then I had a few relationships with girls, and I got married and had kids, and we were together 17 years. And then in the end, the marriage broke down pretty badly, and I had like 6 months just kind of trying to find myself again. And I didn't really know who I was outside of my marriage because we'd been together so long. And a friend said, "Oh, you should try online dating," which is obviously always a terrible idea.
Terrible.
We touched on that
Yeah.
last week's show as well.
But it was more just to make friends, because I wasn't looking for partners or anything like that at that stage. I was lonely. I realized when I split up from my wife that all of my friends were the husbands of her friends. I didn't have any of my own friends, really. A couple, but not anyone significant that I could go to. So I just thought, it'll be a way to make friends. And I made some really good friends. But when it came to the who are you interested in, I just thought, well, if I'm looking for friends, I'll just take everybody and see what happens. And I'm not going to sort of pigeonhole myself, because I don't really know what I like.
So you got hit on by a bunch of blokes, and the rest is history.
Not so much, but I made like male gay friends and trans friends, and I didn't know, I wasn't looking to date any of them. But mind you, I say that was the same with most women growing up. Even like at school, all my friends were girls, and I had no idea that a lot of them liked me that way as more than a friend, because I have absolutely no game at all. So girls were hitting on me and I had no idea. And it was the same with guys. I just assumed everybody wanted to be my friend.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went along like that until somebody made it very obvious they were attracted to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you like me. And went on, made a lot of friends, had a few partners, and just didn't pigeonhole myself. And then I ended up in a long-term relationship with a bi girl, and she kind of introduced fantasies involving men, and just subtly to start with. And I'm like, actually, I don't dislike this.
That sounds like a really good place to maybe take a bit of a break, and we'll go to some music. Let's pick that up again, because I'd love to hear about these fantasies.
DRN1, your favorite radio station, playing the independent songs you love right now. I'm feeling alive. It's not a phase, it's how I thrive. It's love I see.
Welcome back to the B-Side, Perth's Bi Plus community radio. So we've been talking to our guest Chris about his experience of coming out later in life. And I believe we were just talking about you finally realizing that perhaps someone might be into you in a bi way. So would you like to tell us more?
Yeah, I guess that long-term relationship started off as kind of, we were just friends, and then kind of friends with benefits, and then we got into an open relationship, and she introduced me to her friends, and it just kind of went from there. And then obviously she started introducing fantasies of being with guys, and she was like, it's just a fantasy. It's not like you have to do it, but just see what you think, see if you like what I'm saying. And obviously she kept it in a, like, making sure it was, even though it was a fantasy, it was still consensual, and that I was okay with it. And she was really good about that, and introducing it slowly as like, what if there's another guy there, and kind of how things might go. And that just progressed, and I kind of got myself into the, okay, heteroflexible maybe, but I always feel like that's a bit of a cop-out. And then I guess I went to bi-curious, and then things started getting physical, and so I popped my cherry as far as being bi goes. And I went on to kind of try being pan, but then I realized I still had like strong preferences towards cis women, even like trans girls and guys. Cis men are sort of bottom of the pile.
Sorry,
it's
Aries.
not, no, it's just that it's like that meme where when you say you're bisexual, it's like Pedro Pascal, Henry Cavill, and every woman in the world.
Apparently.
Yeah. But I have a very strange, maybe unconventional attraction to men, and it's not physical, it's not any one thing, it's just I guess a vibe that I'm sometimes attracted to, but I'm not attracted to that many men, and I've only ever been romantically attracted to one.
We have very similar stories in that regard, Chris, because I myself have only ever been sort of romantically involved with one man in my entire life. I've been very fortunate in that. So, like you, I'm probably definitely lean more towards female presenting as my main attraction. But like I said, there sort of came a point, however many years ago, where I kind of thought, hang on, I can join love and attraction together and maybe actually consider dating men, not just fantasizing about them.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's the emotional part. Like you were talking about a vibe, like a feeling, like, and I think that feeling might be safety for me. Like when I feel safe around a man, only then can I start to find him attractive. It's, like I can look at beautiful males and beautiful male bodies and go, that's hot. But the idea of actually dating them as opposed to just fetishizing them is a completely different thing. So it really doesn't matter how good looking a guy is, unless I feel safe with them, and unless I get that, like you said, it's a feeling, it's a vibe, and I think the vibe is safety, as we said. Unless I have that, I can't even begin to think about them in a romantic way.
I hadn't actually thought about it as a safety thing, and that's just kind of lit up my brain.
Had a penny drop moment.
Yeah, and I think that is it. It's definitely, I guess, feeling like I can be vulnerable in that way with someone that I'm not used to being vulnerable around.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big thing.
Yeah.
And that goes back to intimacy, because intimacy is about safety. It's not about sex.
Yeah.
It's feeling safe and loved, and
True intimacy.
being able to just open your heart to somebody and know that they're going to protect it.
Yeah.
Chris, you started talking about sort of playing around with the labels of how you identify. You sort of tried out pan, you've kind of landed on bi now. Do you feel like, I guess those labels have helped you in that process of coming out?
I think so. I also discovered 18 months ago that I'm autistic and have ADHD, which again,
Welcome to the club.
yeah, late diagnosis, and it happened Because I went on a date with a doctor who was a consultant for the government who actually diagnoses people and treats people for a living. And yeah, our first date was her saying, "Oh, you don't even know, do you?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what." And she's like, "Brown hair, blue eyes, autism, ADHD. I can tell you all those things with the same degree of certainty." And obviously proper diagnosis followed, but it's and with the bi thing, I guess having that label helped me understand myself more, and knowing that I've got a place somewhere, and that I wasn't, because I grew up not really fitting in. I had friends in lots of different friend groups, but I was never a pivotal part of any of those groups.
Yeah. So Jason's just throwing his hand up in the air, and I would say exactly the same thing for me. I would say I'm definitely on the spectrum, definitely ADHD. But much like you, all of my friends in primary school and high school were women. I didn't have very many male friends at all. And I've always been on the fringes of male friendship groups. I've never been a pivotal part or an integral part, or really a highly included part of any of my, so-called male friends, to the point where at 53 years of age, I've turned my back on all of my, lifelong buddies from like my teens and 20s and stuff, because looking back from where I stand now, I can see those relationships were very one-sided. I was always the one doing the work, doing the chasing, trying to make things happen, and that those people don't really care about me in the way that I found my community does and my people do now.
Ares, do you feel like having come out has actually affected those relationships?
Um, I think with me, maybe not, because I think in truth, probably people in my sort of family and friendship groups have known for longer than I have that I was bisexual. I mean, everyone's teased me about the fact that I'm gay from as early on as I can remember, and I knew I wasn't gay because I'm very attracted to women. So I never really let that get to me. But I do remember sort of, when I had my first boyfriend a few years ago, and a mate of mine was helping me move house, and sort of after we'd sort of finished the move, I said to him, that the guy that you've just helped me sort of move into their house or out of their house, whatever it was actually my partner, not my housemate. And he went, duh. So he'd picked it up straight away, even though I hadn't said anything to him about it at all. And then, a very similar thing happened when I came out to another one of my sort of long-term friends. I sort of told him, we had dinner together one night, and I told him that I was bi, and he exactly the same response. He just went, duh, like, yeah. So I think it was probably been obvious about me to, even though no one's ever seen me with a guy, or I've never fantasized about guys or anything like that in front of them. And maybe it's just because I am, articulate, well-dressed, intelligent, blah, whatever else you want to maybe say about me. Maybe those things in Australian community are perceived as gay. And so I've kind of wrestled with being labelled that way ever since I was very young. We'll be back right after this with more.
DRN1, your favorite radio station, playing the independent songs you love right now.
I'm feeling alive. It's not a phase, it's how I thrive. It's love I see.
Welcome back to the B-side. We are talking with Chris about coming out later in life. So, Chris, did you want to sort of pick up where you left off? We were just sort of talking about maybe when you came out, what that experience was like who you came out to.
I kind of accidentally came out to my mum.
Accidentally?
I'd had my nails
Outing
painted.
yourself.
Yeah,
okay.
had my nails painted in bi-colours, and someone took a picture of me in the pool in my apartment building with the nails on display, and it looked really cool. And I don't think I've ever looked better, to be honest. So I thought I've got to stick it on like Instagram, and I put it up on Instagram, and I forgot that my sister follows me on Instagram, and she saw the nails, and she's sort of messaged me, and she's like, "Hey, I saw your picture. Is there anything you want to tell me? I recognize the colors." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
So how did your sister know what the bi-colours were?
I mean, she's just a little bit older than me, and she's fairly worldly traveled. So,
And was this just like how you were getting around day to day with the painted fingernails, or had you gone to an event or something?
oh no, I kind of, I've always felt like I've presented far too straight, and I'd gone to a couple of kind of queer events, and I just felt like an old straight guy, out of place, and I thought I need to do something to, not to show off who I am, but I I didn't want to look like an old straight guy. And I thought even for other people, just to see painted nails on a guy that just looks normal. Like, I'm saying normal, not
Straight.
yeah. Um, and I feel bad saying normal because it's all normal. But I thought if I had my nails painted, it would help other people maybe. Like if people saw someone like me with painted nails who wasn't afraid to just be out.
And someone who didn't look overtly gay or
Yeah.
bi, like someone who, as you said, just looked like a normal guy, but who has the confidence to paint their nails. Because even that is a really big thing in Aussie culture, right?
I felt bad because I passed as straight, and I was in a straight presenting relationship, and it didn't feel right that people have to come out, and that people are scared to come out, and there's still a lot of people that are just can't be who they are.
It is kind of ridiculous, isn't it, in 2025 that we actually still have to come out, like we can't just be who we are.
Oh, I hate it.
And it's not.
I hate it. Straight people never have to come out as straight. I feel very strongly about this.
I wonder if that's actually changing a little bit with, younger generations. I think there is kind of an assumption that, you're not necessarily automatically straight, but, certainly like for the generation that, all of us here are, it's always been a thing that everyone assumes you are straight until you tell them otherwise.
Maybe that's a really good opportunity for us to put the call out to somebody in the community who may be younger, who would like to come in and share with us their experience of coming out, in this day and age, because it is something obviously that's foreign to all three of us, right? Because we're not that young.
A little older, a little. But yeah, we'd love to hear from some of our Gen Z, friends in the community if they'd like to share how things have changed and maybe how things haven't changed.
Absolutely.
Bridget, did you want to sort of maybe share with us your experience of coming out sort of later in life? Like when did you come out? And
Well, I didn't come out later in life,
you didn't?
actually. Yeah. So very interesting hearing from Chris. And, we have some crossover there. Yeah, I've been out since I was a teenager.
Okay.
So, back in the 90s. And it was never anything that I felt any internal turmoil about. It was very much like, oh yeah, that makes sense,
So when did you know for yourself?
I mean, when I sort of said, yeah, it was a teenager, I suspect I actually knew earlier. But I was attracted to women. But again, as a woman, it's, you were saying, Chris, about having crushes on men and thinking that's everybody. Yeah. I think as a woman, it's even harder because that's very much part of the culture, right? Like, oh, we're all
Expected.
Yeah. We all have our girl crushes, and everybody tells everybody like, oh, you're so beautiful, you're so hot, So I think it can be difficult sometimes to draw the line, but I was pretty clear on it. And when I was, I think 16, 17, I went out with my best friend and her boyfriend at the time, and he kissed her, he kissed me. He said, "Why don't you kiss each other?" We did, and then at the end of the night, she was like, "Can I kiss you more often?" I'm like, "Hell yes." And so I realized, definitely at that point that I was bi. I came out to people, which kind of started a lifelong need to constantly come out, which is, kind of the curse of the straight presenting bi person. You don't just do it once, you do it over and over and over again. But yeah, I was always very happy about it and always very open about it. My current husband, well, I say current, he is my only. We've been together for 23 years, married 20 years this year, actually. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And he's known from the start. I was very, very open about it. So there was never, I never really experienced any issues in that sense, and I never really had any negative reaction. My family were quite progressive, people generally, the people that I hung out with, but I did really struggle when I tried to date women. So there were no online dating apps at that time, so I was just kind of going out to Connie's, going out, meeting people through people. And the women that I would meet, they identified as lesbians. I didn't really meet any bi women at the time. And they just really didn't want to get involved with someone that they viewed as a straight girl experimenting, and that was really kind of the view at the time.
Yeah. Maria, I think you probably have some similar experiences that you may like to share as well.
Absolutely. So I can definitely agree with a lot of what Bridget said. I came out a little bit later in life. So I've only been out for the last 9 years, something like that.
But you knew a lot earlier than that, right?
I've known a lot longer than that. So I mean, I've always, found, been quite attracted to women all through, like, from my teens. A lot of the time it was really confusing though, because sometimes it's like, oh, maybe I just really like her a lot, and she's just a really good friend, and I just think she's pretty. So, like, I think
And women are pretty, so
they are really pretty.
I get
Um,
there.
So yeah, I found it really hard to, I think, kind of, really own those feelings as not just being something platonic, kind of like what Bridget has said. And I guess, it was only really, it was actually like right around my 21st birthday, and a couple of good friends of mine, a guy and a girl, a couple, they actually approached me for a threesome, and I was in a monogamous relationship at the time. So I said no. And I always thought about it and thought, why did I not do that? And like there was a sense of regret that I hadn't actually explored that part of me, because I had always really, really wanted to. So I think from there on, I kind of, while I was sort of regretful that that had never happened, I'd also kind of pushed it down a little bit, because to be in some of those monogamous relationships, I felt I kind of had to like shut off that part of myself, as being, bisexual and being, attracted to women, because that was seen as a threat to my male partners.
Some male partners can be very threatened by it.
Yeah, so it meant that actually it took a lot longer before I actually did, finally, I think, come to terms with it internally. So yeah, that was really only after I left my marriage of 12 years. And all the way through I was still having girl crushes and all of that kind of thing, didn't do anything about it, and then left that marriage, did a lot of soul searching, and then finally kind of the light bulb went off and went, I am definitely bisexual. So yeah, and then coming out was a little bit later than that.
And so what age were you when you came out, and who did you come out to?
Yeah, so I would have been 37, something like that, when I came out. I'd already come out to all of the partners that I was with at the time. I was also polyamorous. So I was with a male partner, and then sort of, I guess, dating women for the first time while I was with that male partner. So I was very open and honest with all of them about, my bisexuality and the fact that I had a male partner as well. And then it was only after that relationship kind of, I guess, completely imploded, for good reason at the time, that I kind of had to actually explain to my mum why that had happened. And I basically had to come out as both polyamorous and bisexual all in one.
Oh, double whammy.
Double whammy. And interestingly, she actually basically looked at me and sort of nodded and said, that makes a lot of sense. So it was probably one of the best kind of coming out experiences I think, I could have, hoped for. I think she always kind of understood that, the way I did relationships wasn't necessarily exactly the same as what everyone else does. And me being able to explain both my, polyamorous nature and my bisexuality helped her to understand me.
Sounds like there's a lot more meat in this conversation, so let's pick that up after the break.
DRN1, your favorite radio station, playing the independent songs you love right now.
welcome back to the B-side, where we are talking tonight about coming out, and particularly sort of coming out later in life. As I said, I know for me it was, very much towards the end of my 40s, almost into my 50s before I came out. And Chris, you were saying, just on the back of what Marie was saying, you had some thoughts.
Yeah, very similar experience. Obviously, my sister worked out that I was bi from the Instagram post, and she told me I needed to speak to my mum and tell her. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And with no real intention of actually doing it. And then 5 minutes after I finished chatting to her, my mum rang out of the blue from the other side of the world to say, "Hey, how you doing? Is there anything you want to tell me?"
Thanks, sis.
Fast.
Yeah, she's yeah. And I said to her, I reminded her that when we were kids, she always told all of us that she didn't care what we were as long as we were happy. And I think it was kind of a universal thing. Like she didn't care what kind of job we had or who we loved or any of that, as long as it was who we were and that we were happy. And she said, "Yeah, I remember." And I said, "Well, I'm happy." And she said that she kind of knew, I think. I also had to tell her I was poly at the same time. I didn't have to.
Oh, so you got the double whammy too.
Double whammy. And so we had that conversation, and she said it makes a lot of sense because you always had so much love. It makes sense that you would love everybody.
I love that.
That took a huge weight off me because I was really worried about it. And I did have a similar conversation with my dad a few months later about being poly. And after I finished telling him I was poly, he said, "Thank God for that. I thought you were going to tell me you were a puff."
Oh no.
So I am just going to leave the other half of that conversation where it is and not go there.
It's interesting because when you were talking earlier on about sort of, I was identifying with so much of what you were saying, and I was really curious as to what your relationship with your father might have been like, because for me, my father is a very sensitive, very caring, very gentle, loving, compassionate kind of guy. And so being raised with that, it made it really easy for me, I think I think in a way it might have even shaped who I became, because I was never, my dad was very affectionate. He would hug his male mates. He would hug us. So he had 3 sons. I'm the youngest of 3. He was really, really involved in our lives in a really positive way. He did a lot of stuff with us. And I saw my dad have really healthy relationships with his male friends, and other males in his life. And so even though there was sort of, I guess, that external fear of, being labeled as gay and what that might mean growing up in the sort of 70s and 80s, 90s, I still think having what I would call a soft, loving father probably shaped me in some way, because I didn't have a lot of the same, I guess, negative Aussie male, stereotypical, toxic bullshit around other men that you do see in a lot of families in Australia. My dad wasn't like that at all. He was probably the polar opposite of that, if anything.
He was not overly emotional, but he was a good dad, and like he was a kind, honest man, and he was definitely a role model growing up. But he had that kind of gruff Northern English man's man kind of thing about him, where anything that wasn't heterosexual was off the table.
Yeah.
Even growing up, with my cousin, and my brother managed a London nightclub that was very popular with the queer community, and I grew up around kind of queer icons like Boy George and Madame Jojo, who's a trans icon in the 90s, and got to hang out with those people. And it didn't really rub off on me other than these are just people.
Do you ever wish you came out in the 90s? Because I know, like, when last week when you said you came out in the 90s, or and I said, "Oh, lucky you," I think it was. I was really active in sort of the Perth hospitality scene in the 90s, and that's when I saw bisexuality starting to become a lot more prevalent. And I guess I don't want to say I have regrets, but I kind of do have regrets about not coming out when I was younger and prettier and more energetic, and like the 90s was a hell of a
It
time.
kind of peaked, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like me.
Well, there were definitely some downsides to that because it was a trend. Then a lot of us who came out then, it did get viewed as you're jumping on the bandwagon, you were being trendy. My mum told me, is this because Madonna kissed a woman? I was like, no, it's not because of Madonna, nothing to do with that. So yeah, but whenever you do it, there's always going to be that sense, isn't there? The grass is greener. I wish I had. I wish I hadn't. We all wish maybe that we'd explored other paths, other options. We've got our sliding doors moments. But I think it's really beautiful actually to hear everybody's different coming out stories and coming from different paths, but finding their way to, I guess, their authentic selves, if there is such a thing.
I have found that being openly bi, a lot of straight women aren't interested in dating.
Yep, I found that as well too. I get vilified a little bit, sort of like I get ghosted on dating apps and stuff by women when I tell them that I'm bi. I even had a bisexual woman tell me that I was disgusting when I told her that I was bi.
It's weird, isn't it? And yeah, it's kind of funny that there is still that stigma, I think. And I mean, I'm not even that bi. I'm not.
Have you considered putting that in your profile, like
Oh, a little bit
5% bi, 10%
I-
bi?
I mean, I'm definitely on one end of the Kinsey scale. I'm not like 50-50 by any means. But being bi and being poly and having that in dating profiles and being open about it, which I feel like I couldn't be my authentic self if I didn't. Like I want people. I'd rather be rejected for being me than play games and kind of con people into dating me and then get them on the hook and then tell them.
Do you think that ratio might change? Because I think it definitely would for me if men in this country were as safe and as easy to be around as women. Because, we both talked about how in school we gravitated towards the girls and we had a lot more female friends. It's because they were safe,
Yeah.
They didn't want to beat you up, they didn't want to flush your head in the toilet or put your head in a locker or, bully you.
You went to a different school than I did.
So you went to an all-girls school?
No, but I went to a school where girls would absolutely do those things.
Yeah, right.
Me too.
Okay. But yeah, so for me it was, there was safety with women, and I think that's why my attraction still skews towards that, because it's I do find men physically very attractive, but I so rarely meet men that I feel safe being around.
It's definitely a big thing. And I think as when I'm dating, regardless of who I'm dating, if one of the things I try and make sure I sort of outwardly present as, it's safe, because I know a lot of the people that I date are probably new to dating, and I do tend to get people that want to date me because my profiles online will say that I'm happy to just go with the flow and I'm not looking for sex. I'm not looking for particularly a relationship or anything like that. I'm happy to do like dry run dates.
Yeah.
Just to get out, because I get really anxious all the time and pushing myself out of that kind of safety zone and making myself do stuff with people, even if it's complete strangers. Just go out to a bar, have a drink, have dinner or anything. I'd rather do that than be stuck at home, because if I stay at home, I get stuck in my own head and I wouldn't go out at all.
Maybe this is what I need to start adopting, doing dry run dates, and then I should go on some dates.
Just steer clear of the straight guy.
Some of them are okay. I got to stand up for yeah.
You might have the one.
Though I did marry a Canadian, not an Australian, but that might say something about Australian men. But anyway,
Canadians are lovely by default.
yeah.
All right, so I think we will have to wrap it up there, guys. Time flies when you're having fun, and this week it definitely has gone by very, very quickly. Any final thoughts for anyone before we?
No, I think, my final thought is just that, while I kind of wish I'd come out earlier in life, I was so glad when I did come out, but I needed to do it in my own time. So I think for anyone who is actually considering coming out, don't feel that you have to do that according to anyone else's, schedule. There's no expectation attached to it. Just do it when you feel ready, if you ever feel ready.
And a really good avenue for doing that too, if you are questioning your own identity and sexuality. Jump onto Facebook, look for the Bi Plus community page on Facebook, send a request to join, and get involved in the community, because there are some really, really beautiful people. And if you listen to last week's show, you will already know about how important community is and some of the experiences that we've had being a part of that community, how safe and inclusive it is. And how it will hopefully be a really integral part of your coming out journey and story, if that's what you're feeling like you want to do.
It really,
I think the really good thing about Bi Plus Community Perth too is because it is a private Facebook group, it means that you can be part of that group without, necessarily all your family and friends knowing about it. So even if you aren't out yet, you can find that safe space to explore your identity, who you are, find some people to talk to. That's been really essential for me, and that definitely helped me in my coming out journey.
Yep. And of course, don't forget to tune in to the B-side every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock here on DRN1 Radio. Thanks very much, Marie, for joining us in the studio tonight as our fresh co-host and your input.
Thank you, Ares.
And thanks to Chris for joining us as our guest.
And thanks to you, Bridget, for being your awesome self, as always.
Thanks to all of us. All right. And to all, a good night.
The B-Side Radio Show is made in partnership with Bi Plus Community Perth and DRN1. Got a Bi Plus question you want answered? Or a topic you think we should cover? Email the B-Side at drn1.com.au. Don't worry, you can stay anonymous. Do you like this show? Check out more of our LGBTIQA+ shows at www.drn1.com.au.
Call it chaos, call it cool. I'm breaking every single rule.